welcome everybody. First of all, my name is Nancy Gulbranson. I was actually born and raised in Spring Grove. Nancy Blexrud, a lot of you remember me as. So we'll backtrack just a little bit. I'm here tonight because I love Lutefisk. And I don't know if everybody loves Lutefisk, but I happen to love it, and so I was asked if maybe I would do a video on how to prepare it, and so I thought this was exciting. Not everybody does like Lutefisk, however, and I'm not going to try to force you into eating it. Where I'm looking at is the crowd in the middle. You've never tried it, but you've heard some of those stories, and I'm going to try to dispel some of those stories. I have a long history with Lutefisk. I actually grew up on it as a young child. I remember memories of Mom bringing me to Anna and Gil Muller's market up the street. And back then you could actually go into the cooler and watch them grab the Lutefisk out of the barrel and cut it and put it in the paper, and it would go home. So I grew up knowing it was a food that I would eat on Christmas Eve. Because I always like to use good practices of hygiene, so I'm going to wash my hands. So when I'm cooking tonight, you absolutely know that I've got clean hands. And it's always something you should do at your home. Wash your hands, and then I always enjoy using paper towels, especially now with COVID, so that you can dry your hands and throw that away. All right. So what is Lutefisk? What is Lutefisk? Well, it's a codfish, and a codfish is a large fish. And some of you might have heard of it as called, some people have called it a live fish, which I think people think of lye and they already get nervous about this. And I've also heard this, it's the consistency of Jell-O. So if you've ever had a bowl of Jell-O and you shake it a little bit, and then when you quit, it keeps shaking, that is Lutefisk. So you're right on with that. Where did Lutefisk come from? Did a little research, and I think this is the true legend, if you ask me. There were some plundering Vikings way back, and they went into a fishing village, and they burned down the village, including the drying racks with the cod hanging from them. When the villagers returned, they of course quickly threw water over the top of the burning wood that had the cod on it. And for a day or so, the fish sat in the ashes and the water, which made a little bit of, as they would call it, lye from the ash. So someone took the fish, because they noticed it started to look like it had been rejuvenated and it was almost looking fresh. So they decided to wash it underwater. They decided to boil it. And someone, the very first person, took a bite of it and said, not that bad. So that is the history of Lutefisk, and thank goodness our ancestors put it on a boat and brought it to the United States so that we get to enjoy it. It's down. I'm going to show you what Lutefisk looks like. Here we go. I have actually two large pieces of Lutefisk, and I'm going to hold it up for just a bit. And I have been soaking this since yesterday. And you can see it doesn't really look like a lot of fish you've probably bought. It's clear, it's almost translucent versus opaque. And this has been cleaned, so it's a very nice fillet, the side of the codfish. And so that's what it looks like. I have another piece right underneath it. So I'm gonna drain this, and I have actually done this 2 or 3 times before. I put cold water on it, and about every 5 to 6 hours I drain off the cold water and I add more cold water, and I keep it in the refrigerator. And what I have noticed now working with the Lutefisk is that it plumps up a little bit more than what originally was. You can see this part has a little bit of the skin in the back. They always say skin side down if you're going to be putting it in the oven or the microwave. You put it in the boiling kettle, as I'm going to do, it really doesn't matter. So soaking it in cold water, exchange that water 2 to 3 times in the refrigerator. Then you need to decide how you're gonna cook it. There's 3 ways. Number 1, you boil it. Number 2, you bake it. And number 3, you microwave it. So you get to choose which you'd like. I'm going to show you the baking one real fast. I'm not actually gonna bake it tonight, but I'm gonna show you what you would do. Take this piece of cod and I'm going to divide it into serving sizes, which would be, I'm thinking 4 pieces out of here. You don't want to go too small because what happens is it does shrink a little bit and it takes a little bit of pressure to put through it because I'm actually cutting through some bones. Now you don't see the bones because they're clear. That's what's kind of tricky about lutefisk, but that is your lutefisk. Now to bake it, you simply put it in a dish. You're going to put 2 pieces in the dish, just like so. And then 375 in your oven. So you take your oven at 375, put it in your casserole dish. You don't have to spray it at all. We're gonna cover it with tin foil. So I'll take a little bit of tin foil and I'll place that over the top. You could also put on a little bit of salt at this point. I didn't. I kind of like my family to salt instead of me. But you could put a little bit of salt. And you simply pop it in the oven at this point for about 30 minutes, and it's that simple. Put it in the oven, 275, I'll slip it in here, and set your timer. Now you don't want to overcook it. Don't overcook lutefisk. The second way I want to talk about is microwaving. Again, you take a microwave safe dish, clear dish is what I typically like to use. Now you take your lutefisk. It's all been washed off. You don't have to dry it. It just all the water drains off. And you lay it back in here. These look like very nice pieces. Now you know from using a microwave, you can't put tinfoil in there. So you'll have to use your saran wrap. And we'll stick that on the top. And we'll flip it around. Again, you don't put anything in the dish. Just a little salt if you want on your fish. And what I always suggest is a little vent hole. So just pop a little vent hole because as the steam builds up in here, it's going to puff up a little bit. And then you simply would put this in your microwave. And you'd set your timer. And for microwaving, we are looking at about 8 to 10 minutes. Always go under. So I'd even go 7 maybe and look at it. And watch closely. The thickness of the lutefisk probably depends upon how long it should be in there, as well as the wattage of your microwave. If you've got a really strong microwave, it might not take as long. So you really have to be vigilant to check that. Okay, the method I enjoy the best, and maybe it's because I was raised that way. In here, and let me again show you what it looks like. It's almost clear looking over here. And when you jiggle it, it does jiggle just like Jell-O. I won't deny that. But it's still firm to the touch. It's not squishy at this point. Okay? So again, we're going to divide it into serving pieces. So I'm going to cut it in half. Again, the resistance I'm going through would be the bones. So have yourself a good knife. And we'll flip this over. Okay, now with that, my mom always used to put this, she would wrap the pieces in cheesecloth. I don't know if you can see this. You can buy it up at Red's grocery store. You can also get it at Mall Queens. And for tonight, I've decided not to use it, but this is what the cheesecloth would look like. I use it also for canning, so I have a lot of it. You'd cut off a hunk, you'd open it up, a little hard to get in. You could see that when you wrap the fish in here and tie it in a knot and throw it in the boiling water, what would happen is that all the pieces don't fall all over the water. So it's kind of maybe a little neater way of doing it. When this comes out, it's hot, 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 and it's hard to get this off. So for tonight, to save time, I didn't want to be working with the cheesecloth. We're just going to go a little bit different, and we're going to put it into our boiling kettle. So let's look at my boiling kettle. Here it is, boiling. A little over a quart of water here. And I've got about, I'd say 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt. You do put salted water. And we're simply gonna lay it down in there. There she goes. Again, it's all been soaking. It's been cleaned. The lye is no longer on the fish. And we'll drop it down in there. Now it's gotta come back to a boil, so I'm gonna crank this up just a bit. It'd be this one. We're gonna bring it back up to a high heat. Might put the cover on just so it'll speed up here just a little. And as soon as it comes back to a boil, boil it for 8 to 10 minutes. Again, I'm gonna start on the 8. So as soon as it comes to a boil, I'll look at my watch and we'll plan on 8 minutes. When this is cooking, this should be almost like the last thing you're cooking on your Christmas Eve dinner. Have your potatoes going, have your vegetable going, have lots of things going. So I'm gonna start working on that just a little bit. I do want to display a plate tonight, so I might go ahead and jump ahead and get our potatoes ready. Sometimes people warm plates. I think that's a little difficult if you have 8 or 10 people. They touch plates, everything's hot. So I'm gonna be warming the platter tonight that the lutefisk is going to go on. But I'm gonna show you, here's some peas. Peas is a nice addition to your lutefisk dinner. And I'm going to simply remove the water. There we go. And of course, with my family, I would have 10 times as much as that, because I have a big family with all of my grandbabies. And yes, my grandbabies have tried this, and I think 1 or 2 of them would say they like it. Both my boys like it, so that's good. They like it. Here are the potatoes. Again, I think they are done. Boiled potatoes would be a real common thing that you would find in a Scandinavian. Is it boiling? Not yet. Scandinavian meal. I'm going to drain out the water. If I'm making gravy, like if I have meatballs also, I save the vegetable water. I put that in my gravy drippings, and that's what I use to make my wonderful gravy. I didn't make meatballs tonight. I figured the star of the show is lutefisk, so I didn't want to ups them by not having that done. Ricer. You don't always have to use a ricer, but I do think it's kind of fun on a Scandinavian meal. So we're gonna put our boiled potatoes in there, chop them down a little bit so I don't have to work as hard when I rice them. If you don't have a ricer, you can go up to Mulqueen's and get one. And you simply squeeze real hard. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And if you've made lefse, you've riced a lot of things. So you don't have to worry about that. Whoops. And we'll take the other 2 that are in. Oh, we'll just take this little one. I'm eating alone tonight unless my camera person wants to eat with me. I just wanted to show you the ricer. If I don't do rice potatoes, what I would often do, I'm going to just set this aside. What I would often do is the mashed potatoes, and then of course that is with gravy. I like beets on the table, any kind of fresh vegetable, but you're going to notice we have white riced potatoes, we have white or clear translucent lutefisk. You need a little zip, and so I use that. Okay. Peas is a real traditional meal that you could, or a vegetable that you can serve with it. I myself would like a rutabaga. You simply peel this, you cut it into little chunks. They're very, very hard to cut. Please be careful when you cut them. I don't want you cutting yourself. They're very hard and they take a long time to cook. But they turn orange, or a really pretty orange color. And it's a wonderful addition to your plate. Okay, it's time to check the lutefisk to make sure it's done. And I think it's absolutely perfect. You want it to be looking like it's gonna flake just a little bit. I wanna be quick here, and I'm gonna take my heated plate out of my oven. And again, just a warm plate. Don't go burn yourself. And we're gonna take the lutefisk out. There it is. One piece. Let it drain a little bit. And then I'll tell you how to carry it to the table where you won't drop it, because it slides all over. That's the bad thing about lutefisk, is it has a kind of a interesting way of not staying on the plate. There we go. And one more. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, in fact, this piece I'm going to put probably just right on here. And I'll put the other ones right out there. And we will add, here's a little lefse. And we're gonna add some of our riced potatoes. There we go. And we have a bit of peas on the table or on the plate. And there's a common theme here, which you're gonna drizzle on the top. And definitely just a little bit of butter on the potatoes and on the peas. And yes, you put the butter right, just generously over the top of your lutefisk. And then you pick it up and you can see how flaky it is. See, it comes off in flakes. That's your little lutefisk flake right there. If you had to be pulling and tugging on this, let me, ooh, now it got into my, you can see the flakes come right off. If you can't pull off the flakes, it's not done yet. But then it's in this butter. Wonderful, wonderful. I sometimes add butter as I go, but you have to be careful for the bones. The bones are very sharp, and sometimes you don't know you have them. And then you have to find a nice way of taking them out of your mouth at the Christmas table. Delicious. There you go. Couple things I want to tell you. First of all, the lutefisk right now is about $7.49 a pound. That's not too bad, I don't think, with all the prices that we have going on right now. To order, normally it's about 1 pound per person. So if you have 6 guests, get 6 pounds of lutefisk. You do have to watch things like this. Like I said, watch the bones. Do not cook in an aluminum pot or aluminum pan. The lutefisk can turn it dark. As well as it says sterling silver, but a lot of people don't use sterling silver as much anymore. Sterling silver, like flatware, but that would not be something you'd want to use with your lutefisk. The menu tonight then, lutefisk, riced potatoes, buttered peas or rutabaga, lefse, butter, and then beet pickles. Now afterwards, you sit and you need to eat some flatbread, some rosettes, kroenkake, sandbakels, rommegrot, fatiman, and end up with a spritz. And that's why we enjoy Christmas Eve, Scandinavian style in Spring Grove, Minnesota. Thanks for watching tonight. Bye.